Tonight's special edition of Newsmax Prime continues, and you can make it even more special by calling us at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. What did you think about Donald Trump's address to the National Rifle Association? We'll get your comments on it, and we also welcome in tonight's political panel. First, Skyping in from Charlotte, the senior contributor to the Federalist, D.C. McAllister. D.C., thanks for your time. Skyping in from Maryland, where he's an economist at the University of Maryland and also a syndicated columnist. It's the guy who knows how to wear a bow tie, Peter Morici. And from Newsmax, Washington, the gentleman you see each Saturday morning at 10 Eastern here on Newsmax TV, the host of Behind the Curtain, Jack Burkman. Ladies first, D.C., we know you were cruising with Ted. What is your situation right now and your reaction to the Trump speech earlier today?
I think Trump's doing a lot to unify conservatives right now with the Supreme Court list, now with the NRA, and sticking to protecting the Second Amendment. So I think he's pushing all the right buttons as far as building bridges with conservatives. I mean, we still don't trust him, I guess we can say, but he needs to prove himself along the line. But he's definitely going and making all the right steps right now.
Peter Morici, you watch that in Maryland, a state that is... well, despite the fact it has a Republican governor, it's really kind of blue.
It's about as blue as you can get.
Yeah. So how are Marylanders reacting? Or more importantly, how did you react to his speech?
Well, I haven't taken a poll of Marylanders, so let me just say how I reacted. I think it was a very good speech. He relates well to the audience. And I think that in addition to, say, moving in the direction of conservatives or the Republican base, look at the Supreme Court list. Look how thoughtful it is and how much effort went into it. He said all along, as the tasks come up, I will tool up and get it done. You know, and Hillary's going to try to make him out to be callow and so forth. And it's not going to work because a man of his accomplishment knows how to get stuff done. Now, he didn't draw up that list all by himself, the way Richard Nixon might have been able to do, but he got it done. And that's what matters. It's very much the way the Gipper did business. So it's good.
And of course, the Gipper, nobody will be like Ronald Reagan in terms of turning a phrase and addressing the camera. But Jack Burkman, you know, as Peter is talking about this, and as I watch Donald Trump rhetorically, he reminds me of a guy who's a project manager who has his clipboard. Okay, we're going to get this done at this time. It's going to be huge. Okay, then we're going to do this. And it's a style that I guess, and we'll talk to Steve Case in our second hour tonight, but a lot of people talk about disruptors. Trump is a disruptor even when it comes to the style of political speech he gives.
You're right. That's well said, JD. I haven't heard that before. Trump, in a lot of my corollary to your theorem, and I think it's a great theorem, might be that Trump is the man for these times, much in the way that Reagan was a man for the times in 1980. Reagan today would fall very flat. Just like, you know, Paul Ryan is a guy, he's like a guy from the 80s. He would have done well in the 80s. I think today as a national candidate, he would fall flat. But I think Trump, for these angry, this kind of angry, cantankerous age, he might be the man. Now, I agree with the other guests. Good speech today, but Trump has got to hurry along with rallying conservatives because there isn't a lot of time. We are big underdogs in this general election, and we all know it. Trump has got to get the conservatives behind him quick, fast, get it done, and then start thinking about the swing voters. He's got to move left. If we want to win this, the odds are against us. She's a 70% favorite.
Yeah, but let me caution you, though, on the old political playbook. A disruptor can bring in an entirely new style. One thing we're going to bring in right now, telephone calls. Let's go out to Las Vegas. Tony is first up this segment. Tony, I understand you're a bit skeptical of Mr. Trump. Hello, Tony. Tony, are you there? Well, I guess we lost Tony at the allure of the one-armed bandits out there got us. To Louisville for Tim. Tim, welcome to Newsmax Prime. Hello, Tim. Well, 0 for 2.
Maybe it's the phones.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Well, let's. I'm just going to try one more, and we'll see if we go 0 for 3. Syracuse, New York for Paul. Hello, Paul. Are you there? Apparently,
Carl.
I'm sorry.
I'm Trump.
I'm sorry.
This is Carl Southern in North Carolina.
Carl in North Carolina. Well, it's good to hear from a North Carolinian because D.C. may not like to admit it about me, but I'm a North Carolinian, although she went to school in Chapel Hill and I went to school in Raleigh. Carl, what's on your mind?
Defense of the public, defense of this country, and the common sense that Trump talked about.
Yeah, it seems to be just a reaction. Carl, let me ask you this question. Because Obama has disarmed or certainly cut back on our defenses, do you believe, Carl, the pendulum is ready to swing back the other way to build up the national security the way Donald Trump was talking about it today?
Look, if my taxes double right now, as long as Donald Trump was spending the money, I would not mind at all.
Well, that's interesting because that at least with Carl, that signifies a change willing to pay more. I don't know if that's the kind of move toward the center that Jack was talking about earlier, but a lot of people have a distrust of the way government spends money. Speaking of distrust, I understand Carl, we appreciate the call. Let me go back and try Las Vegas again. I think we've been able to get Tony back up on the phone. Tony.
I am a member of the NRA. I am completely behind Trump.
All right. I'm not sure. Is this Tony?
No, this is Tony.
All right. Now we got Tony. Carl was just on with it. Tony, it's your turn. Go ahead. Well, we seem to be having some difficulty with controlling the calls.
Yeah, because my name is Tony. I was next, and I've got somebody stepping on me right now.
So we must have a Tony to Tony confusion here. I tell you what, we're going to get that straightened out, and while the folks in the booth get the proper Tony for me to speak to, I'll ask you gentlemen both to have a bit of patience. Let me turn to the aforementioned D.C. McAllister. D.C., your time in Chapel Hill notwithstanding, as I heard you earlier, you seem to be on the Trump train. Is that correct? Or are you still a little hesitant?
Well, I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for the Republican nominee for the same reasons that Marco Rubio said that he would vote for him back in the debates. He said, you know what, we have this radical socialist on one side, we also have a democratic socialist, and, we don't need that going forward. We've had enough of that for the last 8 years. We don't need more drift leftward. We need to get this country on the right direction, and I think the Republican nominee is the one to do it, and I think Donald Trump is building the bridges that he needs to build in order to bring the conservatives in. I have my doubts, I have my concerns, but he's better than Hillary, and that's who we need to turn. We need to turn to our Republican nominee and rally around him and hold him to account, of course. And but vote for him. And it's a never Hillary, as far as I'm concerned. She just cannot be elected and continue the Barack Obama agenda that's been going on for the last 8 years.
Well, you mentioned Hillary, and it's worth noting that, of course, Donald made the claim that he would eventually pick up Bernie Sanders' supporters, but Hillary is saying no. The Bernie folks will come to her side because they're philosophically more like her and not like Trump. Let's listen to Mrs. Clinton here.
I worked really hard to make the case, as I'm sure Senator Sanders will, that whatever differences we might have, they pale in comparison to the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. Name an issue you care about, domestic or international, and clearly we are much closer, Senator Sanders supporters and mine, than either of us is with Donald Trump.
All right, Peter Morici, let me ask you. Hillary saying that she and Bernie are philosophical birds of a feather. Is there something to that argument?
Well, she's saying that they are closer together in contrast to the distance with Trump, which is true. The real issue here is who's going to be more attractive to young people if we're talking about Bernie Sanders leaving. And I think that's Donald Trump. Hillary, just listen to her. She says, I've talked about the issues. She reminds me of a dietitian who's got a list that we have to have 2 apples a day, 1 pear a day. You're not allowed to say this bad thing about that group. You're not allowed to have your gun. You have to pay more taxes. We need to make the banks do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do that. It's kind of like homeroom when the physics teacher's doing it. It's terrible. Donald Trump is cool. Hillary's uncool. She's not an attractive person.
This is interesting.
She's not
Donald,
someone you'd want to have to dinner.
Yeah.
It's not someone you would want to take to lunch unless you're, 55-year-old feminist who's terribly frustrated. Then two of you get frustrated together.
well, this is a very interesting scenario you put out. I was just going to go back to the old high school thing. Donald Trump is too cool for school, and Hillary, well, Hillary might have trouble getting a date to the prom. Oh, there, I said it. I'm sorry. D.C. McAllister is.
She's all Miss Brooks,
Well, no, wait. Now, Eve Arden had an appealing voice as our Miss Brooks. When Hillary gets into full throttle, it's like nails on a chalkboard. But I'm sure, other than that, she's a lovely lady. The lovely D.C. McAllister, the intrepid and erudite Peter Morici, and also our good friend Jack Burkman, who was with us earlier. Thanks to you all. When we come back, the one and only Patrick J. Buchanan. Stay tuned.